Hello everyone, I'm here today with the main man, Scott Arfield. Scotty, how are you, mate? You well?
Very well, mate. How are you?
I am good. How's Charlotte? Let's start there. How is the US treating
It's great, great. The weather makes everything special, doesn't it? Weather is amazing. But so many special occasions so far in the last 6 months. Like Halloween with shorts and t-shirt was a wee bit different for the kids. So we're really enjoying it. But wasn't be back here for a month and then go back.
you? Yeah, we were actually out on a family holiday in LA and took in a game. Um, and the atmosphere is such a family environment. It's much more than a game. Over here it's passion, but over there it's like a big event. And I remember being struck about like everybody gets so excited to get on the big screen when the camera pans round, and the football was actually good. It was an incredible standard. It was LA Galaxy we see,
Yeah,
and some of the players they had. They had a wee guy who used to play for Barcelona,
yeah.
and
Ricky,
he was absolutely that's
Ricky
him.
Puig,
Ah,
wasn't
yeah,
it?
he was incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
So
He's
this
captain there, isn't
yeah, so the standard there is good. Are you finding that as well? Are you finding it to be a challenge, or are you just like comfortably kind of fitting in and doing your
he?
thing?
A bit of both. A bit of both. I think like the biggest thing for me was when I was at Canada. Most of the players at that time in the program, 2000 and well, this have been about 2015, 16. They were all based in MLS. Now it's not. Now it's they're all over Europe. But at that time, it was all like I really like. It just done something for me, like just that experience and all the boys talking. So I always wanted to go to the MLS.
Mhm.
And then when you do it, obviously an amazing experience. But everything you're talking about there is exactly what it is. It's a family event where with a football game,
Mm.
and the families absolutely love it. So it is great, and it's been refreshing change.
Yep. You obviously started your career. You started at Falkirk, then went to Huddersfield, then Burnley. You managed a few promotions, kind of up and down, and then 2018 comes along. You come to Rangers. But before we get to Rangers, it's difficult to ask you to sum up three different clubs. But your career up to that point, you had such a good time at Burnley and things like that. How to ask this question? I can't ask you to sum up all that career, but
Mm-hmm.
you had such a good time in your career up until the Rangers point of view. What's your kind of feelings about that journey and part of your career?
I think I've probably got good sort of affiliations with every fan base. Probably the only one that's sort of no as strong was at Huddersfield, but I think that was down to my performances. It was at Falkirk. It was fantastic. Like the fans really took to me. Young boy coming through the academy, which was amazing. I took to them, and then obviously going this journey ourselves, and then I leave to go down to Huddersfield, and I was a young boy. I think I was 19, 20 when I left, and life's different when you move away from home, and so at that performance, and they spent a lot of money at that time in League One, so probably the fee wasn't replicated in my performances. So, and then obviously go to Burnley on the default of that not playing well enough, and then really kicked on and took into there. So I've always had strong relationships with every fan base, and none more so than here with Rangers. I think I just was a player that sort of probably relatable to a fan, that if you got the opportunity at any club to play for the team, then you would probably try and do that, run about, make it difficult for opponents, and make sure you're proud watching the player that you're watching, and that's all. That's basically what my career's been on.
When Rangers come calling, the Rangers fan base already knew quite a lot about you, and you'd actually been at Ibrox a few times because Rangers and Burnley had played a couple of times under Mark Warburton.
Yeah,
If memory serves you right, you might even have scored on a wee trip to
I
Ibrox.
did. Past
So
ways.
so we knew all about you when you were coming up here, and there was a lot of excitement. This guy can score goals, and tell us a wee bit about signing for the club and how that came about, and the discussions surrounding 2018. When did Rangers become a reality for you?
In February. So I was coming at the last 6 months into my deal at Burnley, and uh, contract negotiations at that time we were talking quite intensely over the Christmas period, and then we just couldn't get anything sort of agreed, and where the club thought I was in terms of like the starting 11 or in the team, and I spoke to Sean Dyche for probably about 3 or 4 months over that period, and then just couldn't get everything going, and then I really did want to fancy a change at that time, and I'm quite sure that my wife lost her gran at that time, so we came up to Scotland, obviously for her to be with her gran and her family, and it went back down, and then Rangers came in, so I met up at that time, I met Mark Allen and Andy Scolding. With my agent back in Manchester at that time, and we thought like this is it. This is the one to bring us back up. And fast forward 5 years, and you're looking back at with very fond memories.
So when Rangers would have approached you at that time, it's fair to say we weren't exactly thriving.
No.
Because Marty would have been caretaker at that point.
Yeah.
Would you have any idea that Steven Gerrard was in the pipeline and he would be your manager?
No, until I was signing. And so we always obviously verbally agreed it and coming back up, and I got a phone call for Steven actually. I went back to my sister-in-law's in Livingston, walking round at Craig's Hill, and he phoned me, and I had to obviously go to the house. And I seen a couple of the boys across the road that I grew up with shouting my name when I was on the phone to Gerrard, and I was thinking if anybody knew who I was on the phone to, but it was he was just getting announced. I think it was getting announced the next night or something, and that was the thing, because he was a hero of mine. So to have that moment was special, and that was a very special time. Like,
what was his message to you?
Just come in, do what you've done. I played against him at, he probably doesn't remember. He probably just absolutely blagged the phone call. But he says just come down and come back up and do what you did down the road. And we're going to sign so many players. We're going to have a right good go at it, turn around in the players, which did happen. And it was an exciting time as well. And the 2 or 3 years that it took to win the league, it was inevitable we were going to come to win that 55th title. I felt as if sometimes we had opportunities to do it in the first 2 years. So many big games that we just came up short, and consistently that's what wins you a league, when you're consistent. But we managed to do it in the third year. So,
and we'll get to that. We're looking forward to that part. But what about Steven Gerrard? What was he really like? Because obviously he had this persona. He was an amazingly world-class player, without any doubts. But what was he really like as a gaffer?
Probably everything you thought. Obviously Michael was his assistant, Mick Beale, and he sort of let him do his thing. Everybody knows how good a coach Mick is, so he just let him do that, and Steven was more of the figure behind it. I've obviously spoke to Davo and Griggsy. He's got that aura. He tried to replicate the Walter Smith sort of stance, which is albeit a hard thing to do, but he did have, when he walked in the room, he knew he had that aura about him as a Rangers manager. And obviously when you go on runs and you're inevitably going to be successful, then it only adds to his hype and his profile, and his career before as a player really spoke for itself. But he was a top guy, great manager, very understanding, like things off the pitch that fans don't really realise, and that human and personal touch goes a long way.
Was he hard? Was he
ferocious?
Was hard.
He was hard. He was cutting at times, very cutting with his words, and I really liked it. I like managers like that. I like when you tell it how it is. The small talking sometimes doesn't really work when you've just said something and it's harsh, and when it's put across as a way, then I liked it. So when it used to dig me out or dig one of my teammates, there was no grudges, and it's basically just get up and get on with it.
The early sort of progress under Steven, obviously there was, where we came from when he took over, you're basically more or less rock bottom, third in the league, not particularly, the squad, as you said, got more or less ripped up, but there was so much early progress in Europe. That run you go on, you then qualify for the group stages, but you go to Russia for Ufa, you end up at 9 men. I think there's a famous story he tells everybody at half time, right, Alfredo's off, don't lose any more, and then we go out and 5 minutes later Flannel gets sent off as well.
That was true.
Is that good? Yeah,
that was brilliant. That was very true. That in his wee Scouse accent, Flannel comes back in and lad, I didn't touch him. Set in yellow, half 9 men. So, but even at that, like that's scenarios that, as a manager, you need to go through the things, and it was his first job, and that scenarios when the respect goes through the roof, because you managed to get back to Glasgow going through. In a game that you probably should lose with 9 men, if you put that in
for
paper,
more than half an hour as well.
For more than half an hour, so in all these scenarios, so only adds to the sort of respect that you're going to get with him. Like this manager's doing it this minute in time as well. He wins the trophy against Aberdeen, then it only adds to his repertoire. So that was scenarios like that what Steven happened and came through with.
You start to find the net, score against St Johnstone at home, and then score in Villarreal. How special was that?
The first European game was amazing. every club that I've been to, I've always tried to take the pressure off the striker, running past him, helping him, take the pressure off him in terms of goals. So I think it took me maybe 3 or 4 months before I got my first goal, and I was desperate to get it, and it was in Villarreal,
September,
in September. So that was a special moment, and it gets that monkey off your back, and it really, gets you going, and to do it in a stadium and a game like that was magic as well.
I think that's when we realised that team had arrived, if that makes sense, because you were 1-0 down and then you come back and it finishes 2-2 and you're thinking that's a great result. And did it feel like that in the dressing room?
No, it was probably disappointing.
Really?
Am I right in saying that they scored?
Yeah, we went. They
right
scored after 40 odd seconds,
Yeah.
an amazing shot, and then we went 2-1 up, and then they equalised straight
that's
away.
Right. Yeah, straight away, wasn't it? Right after was it Laugh's goal? Right after Laugh scores.
Yeah.
So it was disappointing, and then there was so many scenarios where in the European runs there was just disappointment and anger and regret that
Moscow away and
Moscow, Benfica was another one, we're 3-1 up, and so there was different scenarios where that happened. So, and then you need to strip it back sometimes and think, so like, where are you? Like, where are we as a team? Where are we as a collective unit? And then sometimes you take it back, but it's quite hard to do so because you're always knowing that you're representing Rangers and you're representing a fan base and an expectation, and people put demands on you. So it's quite hard sometimes to take it all away and look at where you are. But 2 each away, Villarreal, you probably would have took it.
Yeah. There's another big milestone in that season. It comes just after Christmas time, beating Celtic at home 1-0. And Jacko obviously gets the winner. But that game's a wee bit different because when we think about Scott Arfield in that game, we think about a drop ball and the shorts getting pulled up and getting really ready. And that may sound strange for you, but for us as a fan base, we hadn't seen anybody properly get stuck into Scott Brown. And all due respect to him, he had bossed games for years, but nobody had really got near him. You turned up and made it completely different straight away. I don't know if you realised at the time how much that meant to the fan base of that drop ball, and that was like a message, almost subliminary, that we're here and we're no longer going to just be pushed aside. Did you realise at the time? Or?
No, the significance of anything, no. It was a drop ball, and I'm pretty sure that was the last drop ball that anybody ever contested in, because it doesn't really happen anymore, does it? But it was just two players representing different sides of the city, and it was just one of them that you just need to try and win it. But I used to watch Old Firm games for years before I came up, and I had the exact same outlook what you did, like players just not getting up to players and just kind of standoffish and a wee bit too much respect. So in that particular game, and it was the first game that sure Jacko scores the deflection that game. And it did signify that the tide was going to turn in this wee times, and as I say, we never managed to do it for a couple of years, but it was inevitable what was going to happen.
I think that might have been the first win in 10 years or so, so it was a really big win. The season finishes strongly. Obviously it drops off a bit, we don't quite do it, but everybody can see the progress, and in that I think we win the last 6 games, and one of them was beating Celtic at home 2-0. You get your goal and get your moment. How special was that?
It was special. It's always going to be, for me, memorised as Jermaine's dummy. I think nobody in the stadium seen that apart from me. I just thought, just gamble here. If he touches it and turns in the thingy, then he can slip it in. But I just had a feeling he was going to do something that nobody else could see, and just gambled and managed to get in front of the 2 defenders and put it in. Special moment, absolutely special. Everybody says, but the league was done into that. Every game matters when you're a Rangers player, and for me and for thousands and hundreds of thousands of people watching that game, it meant something. So there's absolutely no doubt, very special moment.
Meant something to me that night as well, I tell you. Straight in the pub. But the next season is really strange because COVID obviously hits and everything's kind of up in the air, but we do really well in Europe. We have a good run to go through the group stages, end up playing Leverkusen. We get that big win against Celtic at New Year, and we're kind of flying at that point. It's a difficult thing to ask, but and to summarise basically in a minute or two, but how did that go so wrong after hitting those peaks? Was it just not nearly been there, but just not quite ready?
I think so. I think if you looked, because it was a brand new era under Stephen, and sometimes we're talking off camera there about some players, and the expectation goes up when you're coming into a team and you've got maybe 5, 6, 7 brand new players. the expectations the second season. So you come in with a fearlessness, and everybody's on you the second season, like some of the players are going to get here, and they really understand what it is to, in my opinion, to be a Rangers player the next season, when people have put demands on you, and they're expected to be at a level, and we just fell short of that expectation. There's absolutely no doubt about it. As a collective unit, as you say, we had a decent run in Europe, but everything was sort of the expectation was higher than what the team at the time, what I thought it was going to be.
Just before COVID ends, Rangers hit a kind of bad run. They get beat at Tynecastle, and then they get beat at home by Hamilton. Yeah. And Steven Gerrard came out, and he really was saying in the press that he had to question himself and his future. Was there any ever doubt in the mind? I know there was in the fan base that we were thinking at the time, is he going to walk away? Did you ever feel like that?
No. I remember seeing that interview, and I remember obviously seeing the reaction of that game, and quite rightly so. It was a game. The Hamilton game, I never played. I was injured that game, but the Hamilton game it
was a freak, wasn't it? Because they missed so many chances.
One opportunity.
Yeah, they took.
Yeah, and we were good that day. I know it sounds horrific, but if you win that game 3 or 4-0, it's as convincing a win you're going to have at Ibrox. It just so happens that that's what football does. It throws these scenarios up to you. But I remember the backlash of the dressing room after that game was, it was mental, quite rightly so. But I never had any I was never discouraged that Stephen was going to stay on and steer to where it eventually happened.
They say that the night is darkest just before the dawn. I don't think anybody could really have realised what was about to happen. But the kind of evolution of Steven Gerrard's revolution comes true. COVID hits. It's a very strange scenario. Even in pre-season, a couple of good results against Coventry at home and against Motherwell. I think we beat them 4-0 in a bounce game basically at Ibrox, and they looked good. Team was good. Giannis was looking like he was going to fit in. Roof was fit. There was goals everywhere, but I don't think anybody could have envisaged what was about to happen and the enormity of the 55 season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It just felt as if, as I said, the second season, the third season felt completely different when we went into pre-season. It felt as if, I remember in COVID, and you're doing your runs away for the team, you don't really get a gauge to where your fitness is, because you're not doing it in a collective unit at pre-season. But everybody seemed to have that sort of doubt about the fitness, and the fitness levels of the team when we came back was just absolutely sky high, because you never had any gauge doing pre-season with anybody. So when we came back in, everybody was at peak mentality, peak performance, and pre-season is the most important thing. So if you get that as a collective unit and everybody at it, then it was always going to be hard to beat us at that season.
Before we kind of go into that season, was there a motivation what had happened the season before, that the season had been curtailed, and we hadn't had a chance to lose the title? It had been given, and fair enough, they were ahead, and I don't really want to go into that side of it, but was there an annoyance of the group that we didn't get to fairly either win or lose that?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that motivation?
Absolutely. That's what it was, and but you're absolutely right. Listen, that is life. That was Celtic's title. They got the title. They were ahead at that game. I'm pretty sure there was 2 Old Firms still to play in that.
I think there were 9 clear, and we had a game in hand maybe. Yeah. And then there was the 2 Old Firms to play. So,
but it's all scenarios. Listen, it was done and dusted, and then COVID happens, and then, as I say, you come back peak fitness. But it was extra motivation, and I remember watching Michael Jordan's The Last Dance, and it just resonated so much that it was The Last Dance, and we managed to do it.
In that run, very early victory at Parkhead, and that 2-0 game, Connor Goldson bizarrely pops up with a double. A brilliant performance by the team. It could have been a lot more. And even that, Griggsy pops up with a brilliant save from Lee Griffiths, I think 80 odd minutes on the clock as well. But it just seemed like everything, even at that early point you were watching, you were thinking, this is clicking, this is going well. We had drawn at Hibs in a 2-2 game, and then drawn at Livingston, I think. So it wasn't easy, it wasn't plain sailing, but the team were looking good and they were feeling good. You go and win that game, and that subsequently has a massive effect on their season, because they more or less implode and Rangers just kick on. Did it feel like that in the dressing room as well?
No, it did. I need to say that the Hibs game, that's one of my favourite goals I've ever scored. I need to blow my own trumpet there with Giannis for the 1-2. I love that. I love that goal. But then again, it's a 2 each game, and nobody remembers it, but for me and Yanis, that was a good goal. But I did feel like that. It did feel.
Because that
but
was a
that,
big
but
win.
again,
It was a significant
but again,
moment.
every time you don't get the result, you need to put it right. Like you have to put it right. And obviously it's hard, and you've got another team there that's been training for 5-6 days trying to combat. Like our team at that time, we had a lot of technical players. We had runs in behind them. We were at a level where you knew that it's going to be hard to stop us winning this league. And there was bumps in the road, of course there was, and there was always going to be. But it is how you react after it. And I felt as if, like every time we did hit a little bump, we felt as if we just kicked on again and kept on winning.
There's big moments in that season. There was a Motherwell game just before Christmas, 1-0 down till late on. Cedric gets 2, Kamar gets 1, and then we win that Old Firm game 1-0. That was the own goal. They go down to 10 men. A really difficult game. McGregor produces some incredible moments in that game. They saved the league Griffiths, and we maybe don't play as well as we can, but we come through again. We go 10 points clear. Then there's a winter break. And there's that thing around the winter break where the last twice we went away in good positions and then came back and we've been stuck a wee bit. Was there any discussion or anything in the dressing room surrounding to make sure that that didn't happen again? Were you aware of it, or was the group aware of the kind of fans' nervousness around that?
Probably not. No. I think as professionals, you've got this outlook where you do need a break. You do need it, but you're after it, and you know the significance of the position you're in and how much you need to sort of look after what you've created so far. So there was never a nervousness. We knew that we were going to kick on after the winter break at that time. But there was never sort of a negative thought about coming back and really putting that into fruition. And maybe you were more nervous than what the players were, but it certainly never felt like that for them.
There were so many early big results when you do come back. We win at Pittodrie 2-1, win at Easter Road 1-0, close but really vital games. And then before you know it, the title's getting discussed in almost early February. It was that quick. It does eventually come. How did that feel? We've all seen the pictures after the St Mirren victory and the dressing room, Stephen sliding along the floor and all that. Was it, as much as it was great, was there a sense of relief and just, I don't know, party fever almost?
It's a good word. Relief was there. It was.
Because although it's a celebration, there's also like, this has been 3 years, and everybody says we maybe aren't going to do it, and because of what was happening, potential 10 and things like that, there was a lot of pressure on that group.
Yeah, there was, and that's why it was so resonated by the Michael Jordan documentary that came in through COVID. But there was so much, obviously, happiness, elation. There was 100% there was relief, because you have to remember the players went on a journey at 2018. There was maybe 5 or 6 players that was still there, and we gathered a couple of players. So the core of that group was relief, and it was elation that you've done it, and the journey that it really took to win the 55th title with Rangers was what you signed up for in 2018. Some players coming in 2019, but the objective was the same. So it was as a player's scenario to sort of really celebrate what you've done as a unit and close mates at that time. It was obviously the perfect way to sign that off.
And what about those celebrations that night? Because we were seeing it, we saw bits of.
We can't remember. There was a video of it. We can't remember though.
Yeah, was it?
No, we all got. I remember after because we were in the stadium. We went upstairs to one of the lounges, and I remember the press officer coming over and saying to us, "Right, lads, everybody, there's 3 buses outside. One's going back to the West End, which some of the players live. One's going Bothwell, and one's going somewhere else." And I'm saying it's 6 o'clock, or was it 8 o'clock? Maybe it was 8 o'clock. And I'm saying, nah. But it was in the height of COVID, so you couldn't really do it. Albeit we were getting tested every 2 or 3 days, but we had to just go home. And I remember just sitting with a bottle of red wine in the house after that, and we celebrated it for 3 years together, and then it was all finished.
How special was it to do it undefeated? Because that's, although it seems like, and maybe people dismiss it, it was an incredible achievement.
It was, and that was the next objective when you've cemented the league. It was the next objective to keep going and make sure that that's a record that'll be hard to beat in the history books.
Next season comes and goes, and just an incredible season again. Stephen obviously leaves November time. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst comes in. What was he like?
Similar sort of stature to Stephen. Comes in with a good staff. You sort of knew that from a how he used to play, because you've grown up watching these players, and quite quickly you realised how tactically astute he was. Remember the big European games, and some of the tactics was a wee bit, because it wasn't what we were used to, because it was a different way of thinking. It was a very European, and it took maybe 2 or 3 European games to really realise. And the bigger that we started going in the run, the more tactically astute we knew that this guy was. So there's no doubt that he's out of job at the minute, but he'll be back in, and people will be singing his plaudits.
I remember John Lundstrom said to us in the press he was amazing tactically. Is that how everybody felt?
It was incredible sometimes, and you're only as good as what happens on the pitch. So you could do everything on a Thursday afternoon. Well, we played on a Thursday, but a Tuesday afternoon doing the shape, and a Wednesday. But when it happens on the pitch and you really see it on a live, he says that he's going to do this and he'll come up here, and it's little things. Well, don't go too early, because if you do it, and it was little things that sound so easy, but there was so much thought process in it, and then it happens. I remember the Dortmund away game, the finished 4-2 that night, and there was little things that he was saying, and moving players out of positions, but half and half positions that the British or the Scottish it just wouldn't happen. So he was taking a sort of football IQ into different levels, and really asking them to trust him, and it did happen, albeit we fell short in the final, right enough, but one penalty kick away for that being an absolute masterclass.
People in my era talk about Parma as being Ibrox being the most electric it's ever been, but that night against Leipzig was incredible. How did it feel for the squad to achieve what you did?
The Leipzig for me was just incredible, and I think you have to remember as well, it was 2 days after Jimmy Bell had passed, so it just felt as if there was never a doubt we were going to go and win that game and get to the final. The noise when Lonnie puts it in was absolutely incredible, and it's 2 teams that were favourite for the trophy. You've put them out, it was incredible. And then you go into the final. There was no doubt from any player, and the fans. There was no doubt we were going to win that game. That was the sort of the feeling, and we fully trusted the manager and the staff behind it, and it actually took us a lot to realise that we lost the game, because we were so confident we would go to Seville and win it.
Funny story about the Leipzig game, when Lunny put that in, the press, it was so busy because it's a European game, we were up the back of the main stand, basically behind the director's box, and we were in with people from Sky Sports and stuff. And when Lunny scored, the fan side of you takes over. Yeah. We try and keep it professional as we can, but he scores, and the boy I remember it was a boy from English Press, and I heard him say, are they allowed to behave like that? Because we were practically over seats and all sorts, so that was an incredibly special night. And Parma was amazing for us growing up. That 2-0 victory under Dick Advocaat's team, they just won the UEFA Cup, and Crespo and all them players, but that night I think beats it for intensity and noise, and as you said, for the emotion of Jimmy. It's just an incredible night.
I think it just galvanised everybody, didn't it? He was an icon of Rangers Football Club. What with some of the best managers the clubs had, and the respect. I think you only need to see it with the Rangers media team. When a legend comes in, the first person they want to see again was Jimmy. Yeah. So I think it really encapsulated everything that was amazing about that the full time. So to send them off to obviously get to the final was very special for him and his family.
We fall short in the league, but the Scottish Cup does offer some consolation, but a very big semi-final victory which you come on in and score. And again we see Giovanni Van Bronckhorst kind of tactical masterclass, as we spoke about off camera, decision to put Bassey man marking and things like that, and then after the 120 minutes I think against Braga on the Thursday, to go to Hampden and do that on the Sunday, just an incredible achievement by the group.
It was, and that's the thing, it's quite common now to see a centre half jump in with the number 10, but back, what was that, 2 or 3 years ago, it didn't. It wasn't quite a common thing to see that. Maybe in top European teams we've got the pace and the physicality to do it, but I remember he was talking about Roger getting in the number 10, who's a very good player, and Calvin just going in and attaching him. And in training, you could only feel Calvin how strong, and his physicality was incredible, and it really did. For me, it's a Calvin Bassey game. I thought it was a masterclass for him, masterclass for the manager, putting somebody into to go and track Rogic, and he had one of his poorest games like that day, and I think it was all because of Calvin. I thought he was sensational that day.
Let's talk about your goal. Because people, when they talk about Scott Arfield at Rangers, remember, I think most people will point to the semi-final as being your moment. In terms of goals, maybe. I think that's probably fair, because your moment's obviously the league win and stuff like that, so not to discredit that. But in terms of goals, that moment, how special was that? Because there wasn't much of a celebration. There was a salute, but it was everybody back and we went again.
Yeah,
Did it feel like that? Because it felt like, because we turned the game from 1-0 down and the momentum just went with Rangers all the way.
Yeah. Well, it was a thing. You equalise and you've got, I don't know how many more minutes to win the game, and I just felt like let's just keep running. Let's just keep running back there. And the actual thing about that goal is Kamar's bad touch. That's what the goal should be remembered for. He tries to touch it himself, and that just took it off him. So thanks very much, Kamar.
But a special moment for you?
Of course it was. Aye, and then it's even made special. We look back in things, but if you don't go against Hearts and win, then of course it's no special or significant. But I managed to go on and lift the cup. What was that?
A special day as well. Yeah. 4 days after Seville, but the club get up for it, and unlucky not to win it in the 90. But again, it goes to extra time, and they power past 2 good goals from Jacko and Scott Wright to kind of see us there. Yeah,
and they were brilliant. We Scott at his stadium, his teammate was scoring against it.
He's Ronaldo in Hampden, isn't he? So.
Yes, hopefully he does it this Sunday, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Into your last season then, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst leaves, things, again, at the point he leaves, they're 9 points behind, and it just really wasn't working as such. There was a lot of pressure. Michael Beale comes in. How did the dressing room react to that change?
Well, most of the players were still there. Obviously there's players coming and going and through the seasons there, but I think maybe 10 players still there, worked with Mick previously. So when he came in, his message was the exact same. He was still the same fella. He was still tactically amazing. I am so surprised at how it ended for Mick, and I knew how special and how important it was for him to make it work. It was a big decision leaving QPR, where as his home down in London, to come, and I think it was only one club that would bring him back up here away from his family, to bring his wife and kids back up. So incredibly sad how it went, but it is football. Just before that, and then Gio leaves, Mick comes in, and so there was so many sort of amazing things to see, and but he was still the same on the pitch. He was on the training pitch. He was brilliant, the best coach or / manager that I've worked under by some distance. I thought his training was amazing, and as I say, it's quite difficult to see how it's panned out for him.
Without kind of delving into his situation too much, but is it fair to say life at Rangers? I know it is as a supporter, but it's cutthroat, isn't it? It's survival of the fittest, because you know how difficult the fans are. Like people, say that you get 6 months, you get 10 minutes at Ibrox to make an impression. Do you feel that as well?
Of course you do. And it is a mentality game. When you've signed, it's different for a manager, where you can be relieved of your duties on the back of results. But if you're a player and you've signed that contract, then you're there you need to honour that contract. And if the fans don't take to you, and there's a numerous amount of players that play in this current team that are finding it difficult under this fan base, but you signed up for it. You're there. You're getting paid by Rangers. You turn up and you play and you put it right, and that's what a Rangers player is. It's a mentality game, and you need to put yourself on the line to be shot doing it all the time, or you will be. You'll just be another player that came through the doors and doesn't make any impact, and it'll be something you regret.
Finally, we talk about your final. There's so much we could discuss. I think we could sit here for 2-3 hours and discuss your career at Rangers, but let's talk about your send off and that kind of final game against Hearts and the way the fans were and stuff. Is that special for you?
Oh, so special. That's the thing that I remember the most out of everything. I got so lucky. I've said this before. There was a Sky interview the 5 years I was leaving that game, and I think I was the only one that was playing maybe, and or Alfredo's already off, so I was doing an interview with Sky straight after it. So by the time that the boys start walking round with the manager, I've ended up just I could milk something out of myself. So I did enjoy that moment. But when I've turned around, all the boys were halfway around the pitch, and obviously I couldn't just come past the Colton Road. I couldn't just go over the boys at the halfway line. So I managed to do it, and I did milk the absolute life out of it. But it is a memory where I'll cherish. And my kids were up there. Kids they're young wee girls, 5 and 7 at the time, 4 and 6. So they don't go to night games, but it was a special game. It was my last game, and they seen me walking around myself and felt the love mutually from myself to the fans, and the fans to their dad. So it done no bad.
I think out of all the players that were leaving, there was a feeling amongst the fan base that it was the right time, except for you. You were the one that everybody felt like perhaps there's a question mark over whether or not we're doing the right thing here. Especially where you were performing, because although the team kind of curtailed, you had a strong season again. Was there any chance that you were ever going to stay?
Aye, there was. The thing about the sort of conversations that me and the manager Mick at the time had was game time. I sort of fell into the category where you can come on and grab a goal, which isn't a bad thing because you obviously always be in the picture somehow. But when you're a football player and you know you've only got so many years left, then you obviously want to play as much minutes as possible. So that was the conversations, but it was completely, we were on the same page in that time. And he couldn't guarantee that I was going to be here, and he couldn't even guarantee that I was going to be in the bench with the players that he was going to sign, and his vision of the team at that time. And I thought it was just going to be, a good time to get off the bus and try something new. But of course, it was hard to sort of have the conversations when you know that it was coming to an end at a club like that. So there was discussions at the start, but inevitably it was my decision to leave.
How would you sum up your time at Rangers, and what would you say to the supporters?
Obviously the 55 one was amazing, but the thing that sort of overrides you is we had opportunities to win so many trophies and so many medals, and to only have so many after being in the draw for so many, that's the one that eats at you the most. You want to look at your cabinet and see as many medals as you can, and we never did it, albeit we got the most important one, was the 55th. So hopefully in time I'll look back at that medal as a wee bit more happy with it.
Before we finish, my favourite part of these interviews, quick fire questions, Scotty. So you ready for these ones? Best player at Rangers?
In my time? Consistently Tavernier.
Best trainer at Rangers?
Definitely no Tavernier. Probably say Ryan Jack or John Lundstrom.
Worst trainer?
Take your pick. Ryan Kent. Best trainer as well, Brandon Barker. Remember Brandon?
Said that about him. Said he was incredible.
Absolutely sensational in training. Just for whatever reason, it just didn't work in a time. But in terms of technical ability, by far one of the best. Another technical ability, Ovi Ajaria, my first season there, first 6 months. Incredible football player.
What a goal he scored out in Newford as well.
He did. And he's went on to do quite well at Reading, but in my opinion never fulfilled his potential there, because I know he's still young at this minute, but he was fantastic. Worst trainer, there's a few that's just, but I will put Weirhas in there because he will watch this and he'll hate it.
Best dresser?
I'll put Big Griggsy. He's got a bit of style.
Bit of class, is he?
But he wears these half socks and it does my head in. That's the only thing. Like half socks with his ankles out, and you can still see if you're going to wear half socks. You can't, in my opinion, let the sock be seen. Do you know what I mean? You hide it under the trainer. He has them out and it does my head in.
Worst dresser?
Griggsy socks. Worst dresser. Horrific. But
He's got a certain style,
He's
isn't he?
got a style,
And he doesn't care. So
he doesn't need to be fair to him now. Must all be freebies.
most skillful.
Ryan Kent and Bobby Ajaria.
Favourite Rangers goal.
Significant wise, I'd probably say the Celtic semi-final, but one of my probably the favourite was Midtjylland away, where I just took the touch and passed it through his legs, which was just so nonchalant. I loved that goal.
Again, to quickly deviate, that's such an underrated result. That night, it was.
Next season, I'm sure they qualify for Champions League, didn't they?
Yeah, it was like when we beat Willem II out in Holland, hammered them 4-0, and it became an expectancy. But they were a good side, and that was a brilliant result again. So slightly deviating away for
Hibs
that.
as well. How good does that go? Hibs.
Favourite Rangers game?
Leipzig. Ibrox.
Difficult question. And who was the best manager Rangers you played for? Obviously, Steve and Gio and Michael were all different, but do you have a personal favourite?
Probably Stephen. I just thought he had a human touch. Backed up with how good Mick was as assistant manager, it was always easy to speak to him. If you've got any problems where we were going as a team, the two of them, and Gaz Mack as well, Tommy Colshaw, just had a great sort of balance between them all. All different people, but if I was to be pressed in one, I had to choose one and say Stephen.
Pick your Rangers 5-a-side team of your 5 years there.
Great question, that.
This is your last one, so you can relax after this.
Right. McGregor. I'm in it.
Of course.
Right, good. Because I'd put myself in it. I'll go with Big Connor's brilliant 5-a-sides. I put Connor in there. Griggsy, Connor, myself, Kent, and where'd I put Buffalo? Jermaine Defoe. That would be, if I was taking myself out, I'd put Ryan Jack in.
I said it was the last question, but I've almost not asked you about Alfredo Morelos.
Mm-hmm.
We've went a whole podcast and I've not asked you. What was he like?
Hard work at times. Hard work. He's an enigma, but my God, he scored goals and did he turn up, didn't he? Yeah, you know, everybody talks about your last season. It's sort of what you're remembered for, but you have to remember how good a signing.
Top European scorer at Ibrox.
£1 million. Was it £1 million? Helsinki. To come and to consistently put out performances, hardly ever injured, robust, physicality, scored goals, turned up big occasions, adhered to Celtic supporters, and what a bit of business it was. So he was very good. He was the reason why I started learning Spanish, actually. So I've been learning Spanish for.
He can speak English, though, can't he?
That's why I started learning it. And when I learned it, he started speaking English, didn't he? So I think that was his way of saying that. Just stop learning it. I was trying to help him at the time. And
I'm not going to say was he crazy, because that's an unfair label, but all the stories of his kind of antics in the dressing room, and you see the cup game where he's throwing the sweets at Tav and stuff like that. And I think there was an interview Jimmy used to say, or somebody used to say him and Jimmy used to wrestle all the time and all that. Was that what he was like?
Aye, and Disco the masseur used to write in his head and sign his head all the time, Baldy. So he did used to, but ironically quite quiet at times. Like,
I met him a few times and he was incredibly polite and really well mannered.
Very humble, very nice boy. I think he just liked the camera, and when the camera came out, he loved that. That's what he thrived on. So, a great fella he is. He really is, and I do hope he gets back to that form and really kicks on his career.
Scott Arfield, can I just say on behalf of the fans, thank you for your service. That sounds weird, but we loved watching you. You gave everything, and we really appreciated it. And I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy this. And thanks for your time you've taken today.
Top man.